I'd like to welcome you to this studio tour of A Sense of Place, abstract art in northern Indiana. In the tour, you'll meet the artist of this wonderful show that's at the Fort Wayne Museum of Art. Before we begin, though, I'd like to thank Sarah Fiedelholtz of ThinkBox Strategies, Shannon Bruns of Capture Photography, and Rod Ovitt of Luminous Productions. Enjoy the tour.
I want to welcome you to this show. What makes this program special is that we are going to take you inside the process of all 13 artists who are involved in this exhibition. I think we're all aware at this point in the 21st century that abstract art is part of the fabric of our lives. And it's important to create a survey show like this to highlight the fact that we all embrace that, and it's totally welcome. There was a time 100 years ago when this was a pretty radical idea. Over time, it's shown itself to be a lasting, valuable part of our everyday existence. This show is really important to generate a broader awareness of our regional, local, and statewide talent, printmaking, painting, sculpture. These things integrate with our own homes, businesses, organizations, educational programs in a way that's very meaningful. The hopes and aspirations that I had for this exhibition to create awareness, to bring the public into focus with the abstract art that's being generated here has already caught hold. My hope is that when you watch this program and see the quality of the artwork which is being produced, that you'll have a deeper understanding and appreciation of this great talent that we have right here.
With an extensive career as an accomplished architect, it is easy to see George Morrison's love of buildings, as well as the influences of his formal architectural training in his sculptures. George mainly works with ceramics, although he has started to experiment with die-cut paper, and his work is very structural in nature. From his work, you can clearly see his understanding of artistic capabilities that clay offers. Thus, it is evident that George's sculptural forms are very much influenced by the material he is using. Inspired by his work as an apprentice bricklayer for his father, George uses the same extruding process from which bricks are made to begin the process of creating the clay shapes for his sculptures. The key to this use of extruding process is the dies he creates to get exactly the clay shapes and forms he desires. For George, it isn't only what he does to the clay to create sculptural shapes, but also his technical understanding of color, glazing, and firing his clay pieces that give him sculptures their interesting coloration, sheens, and textural presence. George also uses his understanding of how to construct forms by using repeating shapes and patterns to create his clean, simple, yet complex paper sculptures. For the exhibition, George has literally brought to light his paper-constructed form, Moonlight, which is the ultimate version of abstraction. Not only is the lit sculpture beautiful on its own, but the shadows and reflections it casts on the gallery wall adds to its luster. This artwork asks viewers to consider the question, how and where does a piece of art really begin and end?
My name is George Morrison, and the type of art that I do is primarily ceramics. I do work with paper, die cutting, and structures of various types. Currently I'm working on some lamps out of die cut paper forms, or actually cardstock forms. I see it as experimenting with the materials, and especially clay, which has very unique characteristics and behaves in very unique ways. And you can treat it in so many ways. You can extrude it and you can throw it on the wheel. Like a chameleon, it can be anything. So it's just fun to experiment with. I see my art as primarily being very architectural, which is my background, so I'm working a lot with volume and form and surface. Not necessarily functional, in fact, more often than not, non-functional, but sculpture in the sense of a building can be sculptural. The extrusion process is, if you ever had a Play-Doh machine when you were a kid, where you put the clay in and you push a handle down and it squirts out, it's exactly the same thing. You can make a die of any shape you want, and you can extrude that die and make multiples of identical things and make it as long as you want, bend it, fold it, smash it. It just gives you that basic form to start with. My work is primarily about process. I find that working with various materials is kind of an experiment with the physics of the particular material. I find it enjoyable, entertaining, whatever, good for my brain to experiment with stuff. It's like being a little kid and playing with clay when you're a little kid and everything is new. And it's fun to try to keep that newness in what you're doing. I'm constantly thinking of, wake up in the morning and think, oh, well, what if I tried this and what if I tried that? And I don't know, it just keeps life interesting to me.
In the A Sense of Place exhibition, we have 3 abstract artists who are sculptors. One who assembles her pieces, one who makes his artwork by extruding and casting clay, and one who carves by hand. For over 50 years, Jake Webster has carved, chiseled, and refined his sculptures with the simplest of tools, using the oldest techniques to carve wood, natural stones, and aerated cement. Jake lets the piece of material tell him what they are to become. He finds using his hands and the traditional carving tools to directly mark the log, stone, or block very rewarding. And although Jake's artwork is inspired by his changing community, environment, and daily life, he does have certain shapes and details that are constantly repeated in his artwork. And thus, he sees himself not only as an artist, but also as a poet and author. And it is clear Jake's sculptures have much to say and convey.
When I write, when I think, when I eat, when I sleep, it's all sculpture. I am sculpture. I carve wood is my principal material. I always see a finished product. I have no idea how I'm gonna get to that finished product, but I can always envision the whole. To me, it's more about this human connection, what I can relate to you and what you give back to me. So I could never do something and tell you to go make out what you think it ought to be. Abstract art is when you take something real and shape it or reform it to make it look different or act different. I can carve any design that I'm thinking of on a cracked log. Most of my larger pieces are made out of some pretty darn good American wood. The process is simple. You take a simple tool and I cut simple shapes. And I've been cutting them for 50 years. I just hope I done got better at it now. I was born black, I was born poor, but that never stopped me from making art. I'm a storyteller. So all of my pieces tells a story.
Jay Zerby is an abstract artist based in Michigan City. He uses both painting and collage techniques to create his artwork. It was a very difficult decision to select which medium we wanted to feature in this exhibition, but ultimately we decided to focus on his paintings, as they have such a great rhythm. He describes his paintings as organized chaos, and even with their energetic surfaces, Jay uses warm and cool tonal hues to create a striking sense of balance and harmony in his pieces.
The kind of art that I do now is abstraction, but it's abstraction that's based on the kinds of things I see around me now in nature. It's all based on the kind of line and shapes that I see around me in my environment. I can see something different in lighting, or I can see some different kind of plant that's different today than it was yesterday. I mean, the beautiful thing about living in this meadow is that every single day it's different. It's not prepared. I'm never prepared completely for what I'm going to see. So I always have my iPhone with me, and I'm always snapping a photo of something interesting. And then very often I look at that later in my computer and I say, let me think about that. Or I may manipulate it in the computer and find some way of using those forms, shapes, sometimes colors, in my other work. As an artist, I think that just the joy of mark making it always feels good. I mean, it felt good when I was 8 years old drawing horse heads. It felt good to put a pencil to paper. And it felt good in terms of being able to express something. So it's always a joy for me to put something down. And as I've gotten older, I have a more philosophical view of it, and it's my way of leaving a legacy. Things that I like about being an artist primarily is that it gives me a purpose in life. I feel that it's my opportunity to funnel my thinking as well as my seeing into work that can possibly lift up other people. At least if you look at my whole artistic career, I've gone through lots of change. And that's what's a joy for me, is being able to develop not only intellectually, but to express that on the canvas. I mean, what better joy is there than being able to express yourself?
Instead of different artistic periods, Justin Johnson works in artistic cycles, in which he takes an idea and works to create multiple pieces with variations of perspective, meaning, and context to create a cohesive and comprehensive abstract narrative. I think of Justin as an intellectual artist. He studies periods of history, their impact on greater society, and his own search for meaning to create expressive and poignant collections of themed works. And it is through Justin's collection, these standalone works of collage, that you are drawn into the story. Justin wants you to get up close to his work, and it is by design that when you look at his piece, Desert Elegies, it feels like you are reading a very grown-up picture book. It is intended to be read left to right and top to bottom. This work is telling of Justin's interpretation of the unrest and strife in the Middle East. Justin brings an interesting perspective to this work and has added a different element of abstraction to a sense of place exhibition. He reminds us that abstract art doesn't always need to be large, bold, and bright to make a statement. It can be smaller, quieter, and more subtle to still provide the viewer a very powerful message.
The type of work that I do is mainly mixed media collage with drawing and overpainting. Most of my works are small. I want them to have a tangible history to them. I use a lot of found papers, found texture surfaces, creating images that are subtle, austere, and pull the viewer into the works. My work takes its inspiration from current events. What's happening in the Middle East, what's happening in Africa, and even here in the United States. And what I try to do is take these very violent, very horrific events and distill them to the most delicate of compositions, so that when the audience looks at them, they look at them almost and interpret them as whispers rather than shouts. And so these compositions that I create, in terms of the amount of time that I'm actually spending on the work, may not be very long, but the time that I think about it subconsciously is very lengthy, and something where I'll think about a piece for months before actually going into the work and creating it. What I like most about being an artist is it allows me to be honest. I'm very devoted to my studio practice. I've been a professional artist now for over 20 years, and I feel like I've learned a lot as an artist from that time. I feel like I have a long way to go as an artist, but what I love most is just being able to isolate myself with the media, with the images, and continue to build this narrative as an artist abstractly.
There is no doubt that printmaker Monika Meler is elevating the art of printmaking with her experimental approach to the more formal techniques of printmaking. Monika creates intricate paper cutouts that she uses as a matrix in her printmaking process. She likes to also incorporate these cutouts as sculptural elements in her printed works to turn them into more installations rather than solely specific works of art. Her linear pieces, shown in the exhibition, have an incredible sculptural quality, and not only is Monika using 3D elements in her 2D prints, but she also uses her work to examine the impact human beings have had on our planet and its natural environment.
I make most of my work using the press. I work in using mostly abstract imagery. My art is a combination of abstract images as well as vivid color to evoke feelings and thoughts. I think all art is abstract. Even ones that appear to be realistic, there's a degree of abstraction in them. What I consider my work to be is a semi-objective abstraction, so I'm always looking at real and actual things. And I think that I'm drawn to printmaking because it's extremely process-oriented and process-driven. And after I did all of these studies for years and I learned all these processes, I kind of came up with my own hybrid method of making prints, which involves cutting these matrices out of mat board. So it's a process that is somewhat related to relief printmaking and a bit of collograph, but many of the images are a result of these things that are sort of happening subconsciously, the things that you're looking at, the things you're surrounded with. What I like most about being an artist is I feel like it never gets easier. The challenges are just constantly coming, and it's part of what really drives me. And that's one of the most exciting things to me. First, it's a challenge, and then it can really be just anything. Like the limits are not there. One of the things that I think is a really important part of my work is the color. So I'm constantly involved in kind of finding new color combinations. And so I think that play with color is one of the most important things that I'm doing in my work.
Theoplis Smith is a self-taught artist, but can't be described as an outsider, the term given to artists who have no formal art education or training. Unlike the perception of many outside artists, there's absolutely nothing unrefined, simplistic, or unskilled about Theo's artwork. The best way to think about Theo's techniques and skill is the same way we understand musicians who can just play by ear or untrained athletes who just have what it takes to make the team. Theo created his special method of fast painting with bold, vivid, and fluid strokes as a means to quickly capture his ideas, as well as having an outlet to express his passion and desire to constantly be creating. Theo's artwork has an identifiable style, and the results of his mix of talent and techniques makes the pieces that you can't not look at. Theo's work is getting national recognition and may be found in the art collections of several celebrities. But Theo remains grounded and devoted to the Fort Wayne community and supports its effort to have a vibrant art scene. He continuously contributes to public art projects and has several painted murals throughout downtown Fort Wayne.
I'm a multidisciplinary artist, everything from oils, acrylics, aerosols, and beyond. The best way to describe my art is organized chaos. My ideas come from my feelings. It comes from my experiences with my children, my wife, my family, those that I embark with life with. I'm able to find my truest intent and my identity in those places and in those times. So being able to be the ultimate creator in painting, but seeing my reality in front of me, it's an out-of-body experience. Everything from airbrushing, acrylics, aerosols, 3D sculpting to virtual reality painting too. So I'm fluent in like your Oculus and your tilt brush and everything like that. But being able to figure out how these worlds can intertwine with each other, and even if they don't exist with each other, you still find notes of who I am and my characteristics and my style throughout the actual pieces that I'm doing. Art relates to everything you will ever accomplish in life. Everything has been related to art. The chairs that we sit on, the clothes that we wear, the function of our beings and our structures and our the light source, everything is related and comes back down to the lens of art. Art is everywhere. I hear art, I hear color, and it's everywhere that we are. So why not enjoy it? Art is not a luxury. Art is medicine. Art is joy. Art is peace. Art is chaos. Art is war. Art can be whatever you need for it to be, but don't ignore it. Every day I have the privilege of waking up and creating something out of nothing. That is my love letter to the world and God.